Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Nachum Russell, or Russ, because like always, most people can't say my name. It's funny how that just became my intro to my show. It's like none of you can say my name, but that's my name. For those of you who've never tuned into this show before, it's usually a weekly show that I do, talking to trainers or other people who I want to talk to. And it's a fun show. It's not a Q&A, so don't ask your dog training questions here because they probably won't get answered. But if you have comments that are apropos to our discussion, or if you just want to say hi, feel free to do that. Comment section is open. And this is my friend Matt, who can introduce himself.
Thanks, Ross. Hey, I really do appreciate you being invited on. I get a ton of value from the discussions that you have with other trainers. So, it was a big honor. So like you said, my name is Matt. I run Cochran Canine Training in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I started doing board and trains and started my company working for it full time in September. So pretty new into this. I know I've got a lot to learn, but I've been busy as all heck. And I do attribute some of that to you, Russ, because the content that you put out. So I appreciate it.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that you did something with it. I think it's really cool. I've known you for a while, obviously through social media. We never met in person yet, but I've known you for a while, right? We chatted a lot on Instagram, and I think you originally asked questions on my Q&A show that I used to do, right?
Yeah.
Which is a long time. That means like you've been following my page pretty early because I haven't done that Q&A show in a long time. And then it's pretty cool to see how you went from, I think, working with your own dogs to now full time. And it's from someone who's on the sidelines outside, it's a really beautiful thing to see where you've gone with it, what you've done with it, how you've made it into a reality, because a lot of people talk and then a few people actually make things happen. So it's really cool. Congrats on the new house, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what would you say, I know you're only doing this for a little while, but what would you say is like been your biggest push into this? First of all, I'm curious about like why you actually did it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know your story if you struggle with other dogs, but I'm also curious what's been like a big learning thing that you've gotten out of it so far.
Absolutely. So, typically, dog trainers get into it because of their own dogs. I have 2 Australian Shepherds. Dwight is the older one. He just turned 2 yesterday. And then Noodle is almost a year old. She's like 11 months, 10 months, something like that. But around 8 months old, Dwight was an asshole. He like when I got him, we just showered him with love, showered him with affection. And he took control of the house, right? He was terrible on walks, terrible around other people, just barking for attention, started showing, all the things that we fix now, right? The things that we address, the things we deal with. And there was a turning point when my wife said, I don't want to walk him anymore. Then I was like, okay, like, I got to do something about this. And so I just started doing the research, started getting into it as a hobby, fell in love with it, and the rest is kind of history. But how I actually got into it, if I remember right, you're a fan of Gary Vee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I love Gary Vee.
Yeah, I used to, I don't really follow much anymore as of recent, just because I've been so busy. But, I was like religious into it, just listening to the podcast like every day and like just like watching like motivational videos and stuff because I needed that to work, because I hated my job. Right. Then COVID happened. And he came out with that Tea with Gary Vee show. And I was, watching that while working from home. Yeah. And it was back in March that I saw this episode, and it was just like, post what you want to post on social media. And, and previously I had, just posted like things from college, friends going out, drinking, like that's just like, grab a group pictures and post it. Like that's what I posted, but it was fun, but that's not what I like wanted to post. And so then I started posting dog training stuff. huge leap of faith. I'm not the person that talks on camera. I'm not the person that makes videos and stuff. But I just said this is what I want to post, and then things happened very, very fast.
Yeah. What would you say was the big thing that was holding you back from posting what you wanted to post?
Probably just posting what everyone else was posting. You know what I mean? Like I followed, like people that I knew, and everyone just posted the same shit. And I just was posting to update people, but like it wasn't really what I wanted them to see.
Right.
So then I just started posting what I wanted to post.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I'll tell you why I was asking, because literally right before we connected, like to go live now, I was watching Bethany of Walking Dog Training.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her?
I know, I'm starting to know people's company names.
Okay.
I haven't you're probably the only trainer that, other than Julie's Canine Academy, the only trainers that I really interact with on a lot.
Cool. I'm honored. Well, Walking Dog Training, her name is Bethany. She's awesome. She's somebody everybody should follow. Because she's just an awesome person. And if you have an awesome person who trains dogs really well, then you should follow her. Mm-hmm. But she's hanging out with her friend Kate, who's canine training. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're close friends, and they're in Florida together, and they're doing on their Instagram stories a series of answering questions just for, I guess you can call it wannabe trainers or trainers who just started. Okay. And the question that keeps popping up is social media content.
Yeah.
And the thing that they keep on talking about is what held them back from creating content. And it was very much along the line of what you were saying, of not wanting to put out the same thing that every single person that they think is putting out. It's like, everyone's posting dog training. Who's a dog trainer? Why should I post dog training? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I definitely went through that too. But I think the cool thing about it, and you're probably starting to notice this, is people are connecting with you. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why they're hiring you. They're not necessarily, I mean, obviously you're doing good work. I see what you're doing, but it's also that they're connecting with the person behind it. And I think that's a cool aspect of it that a lot of people forget of social media. That also, like, Gary Vee is the one who I learned this from too. I'm a big fan, but he said, like, people want to know you, right? They want to know the person behind the company, behind the brand, and in this case, behind the dog training, especially with dog training. They're trusting you with their dog. And you putting yourself out there is what really shows it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've started to notice as well, the messages, are all the same, right? They're like, we're not doing anything new in terms of, what works well with our dogs. How do we get our dogs to behave? It's just, the message is evergreen. It's just, you have to say it in your own words. And that's what I've come to realize as of late, because my content has started to slow down a little bit, because I'm like, I follow this person, they just posted about structure, or I follow this person and they just posted about tools. And I'm like, I don't want to think I'm copying them, but really we're all sending the same message, just in our own words.
Yeah. And another thing I'm going to say that I saw Bethany talk about, because I love her, and she was literally just talking about this conversation. So it's like fresh on my mind. I was watching her Instagram stories. A good thing that, and this really all of this whole conversation is much more than a dog trainer's conversation. Like, this goes for people who are on social media and either want to post stuff, are scared to post stuff, don't like what they're seeing. There's this really cool button. And you don't even have to block, right? Let's say it's a friend, right? Let's say like me, right? We'll use myself as an example, so it's like easy, right? Yeah. Let's say you see me keep posting about structure, because it's like half the shit I talk about all the time, right? Because I love it. Yeah. And you're like, I don't want to keep posting it because Russ is going to think I'm copying him. Like, you can mute me as opposed to blocking me, so I won't feel bad that I'm blocked, but you don't have to see my shit. And the real reason is because you're comparing, right? It's all a comparison game.
Yeah.
And what I've learned from it is, like, as much as we can all give the same or a similar message, which I don't think it's all the same, really. I think that even if the idea of what you're saying, what I'm saying, the message is totally different because it's coming from you or it's coming from me. Yeah. And that's really what dog owners need out of it all, right? Yeah. Like, if you ask your dog owners, your clients, why they're hiring you, a lot of them are going to say because they like you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I like to think so.
No, it definitely is true. And the more you put it out, the more you find your voice, and the more you find like what you are when you're on social media, who you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm actually going through that process right now. You know, it's not like I'm not writing it down like a checklist, you know, but at the same time, it's like the stuff that I'm posting, it's always changing because I'm trying to find my voice, right? My Instagram is growing, and it's certainly due to the amount of content that I'm putting out, but I'm still like trying to find that voice in my style of posting content. But no, you have to post content to, get the clients and continue to do what we want to do.
Yeah, me too. I'm also finding my voice. Like, it's probably people think, because I've heard people say this, that like you're so comfortable on camera, or different ideas like that, or that idea of like you already know like what you're doing with it and stuff. And it's like, I don't really know. I really don't. And I literally hated being on camera for the longest time in my life. Like, this wasn't a thing, right? Like, I would never do that. And making content and putting myself out there and showing who I am to, like, technically it could be millions of strangers, right? Because you're putting it into the world, even if only 2 people watch that video. But on your end, you're putting it out for anyone to see, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't me. Like, I was totally the opposite of that. Like, I think I consider myself a new trainer. I don't consider myself like, I'm new. I just started. I don't know shit. I'm just figuring out what I'm doing. I just like talking to people about it, and that's it. I'm not like, that's why when you started asking me like questions and advice about dog training, I was like, I'm not, don't ask me. Like, I don't know shit.
Yeah, that's so funny because it happens to me too. But I never, I always give advice, but like, I still think that as well. Like, I'm like, why are you asking me? I just kind of started this, but if I can bring half the value that, I've received from you, from these podcasts, in this podcast, it's like, okay, then I've more than done my job.
So I'm curious, what advice do you have for somebody as a new trainer, right? Like, you're like the new kid on the block, right? And you're just finding your voice, putting out content, figuring out your style. Even in dog training itself, you're probably figuring out what your style is and how you do things, right? Because that's constantly evolving for anyone who cares about this shit.
Yeah.
Like, what advice do you have from your experiences for somebody who's interested in doing this?
It's just that you should work with as many dogs as possible, whether it's for free, whether you charge someone $20, or someone says, wow, your rates are really high, and you're like, okay, I'll just discount it. You know what I mean? It's just have a leash in your hand as much as you possibly can. If you're capturing content while doing that, then it's going to speak to someone and you're going to grow. Just work dogs. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, working dogs is definitely the most important, right? Like, there's a lot of books and videos and content that people can watch and get into to try to become a dog trainer. You can read I'm going to quote Gary Vee again because you got him on my mind now. You ever heard Gary Vee say, like, you don't get fit by reading about push-ups?
Yep.
Right? You don't learn how to train dogs by reading about training dogs, and even by watching videos. Like, you learn how to train dogs by working with dogs, right? As many as possible, because every dog, and this is how I look at it, like, every dog that I work with is like, it's that new book to read, to like learn something new about dogs and about dog training and how I can best help the next dog that comes in while learning about this dog. And it's one of the things I love about this so much, is that it takes that constant, like, curious eye to keep learning and figuring out what's going to work and what comes next.
You literally take a piece of every dog that you work with into the next one too. Like, I've learned something from every single dog that I've trained, and I'm sure it's going to continue for a long time. Speaking back to the content, like just consume. I have a story about that. Like I was training my own dogs. I was, maybe a month into it, right? I'd been, doing my research. I had been working with my own dogs, started to help out family and friends for free. I was getting confident. I was cocky for no reason, right?
Yeah.
No reason at all. Super confident. Came across this Great Pyrenees Husky, or not Husky, Great Pyrenees Shepherd mix.
Okay.
Over 100-pound dog, like named Henry. I'll never forget his name. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like I'll help your dog, aggressive dog. Like no problem, right? He served me a piece of humble pie. I got bit. And that's what made me like take a step back and be like, I don't know as much as I like think I do, which caused me to do a shadow at Julie's Canine Academy that you just shadowed with. Mm-hmm. And I actually found them from your podcast. So
yeah, I think that's awesome. I was so excited when you told me that.
Yeah. So like, obviously consume content, but you're going to learn the most from having a leash in your hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And those dogs that, as you called it, serve you a piece of humble pie, right? Like those dogs are important dogs. Like sometimes those are the greatest lessons because in my experience, when I start to get cocky with this shit, like that's when I start to mess up. Mm-hmm. That's when I don't train the dogs the way they should be. That's when I don't give it my all. It's like when I said I don't know shit, I really believe it, right? Because you can never think you know it all. When you think you know it all, it's time to move on to a different career. Go find something else to do because this is something that you are never going to know it all. We're working with living beings and every single one is going to be different. And there is no cookie cutter program that works for every single dog. And when I know I can talk for myself, when I got into that mindset for a little bit because I had a flow, I had dogs constantly coming in. I had worked with some really tough cases. So it's like now I can do anything, like anything's possible. Yeah. That was when I messed up the most, right? That was when I totally missed the cues that the dogs were giving me, didn't read dogs properly because I was like, I got this. I can do anything, right? Yeah. And I think, again, it's another thing that I love about working with dogs so much is like they'll keep you humble, right? If you step out of line, then a dog's going to correct you, right? Yeah. In one way or another. You know, it's not like the corrections are a one-way street where it's all just trainer correcting the dog. It's like you step out of line, and it can be something as simple as waking up too late and having to clean up shit, or it can be something like not reading the dog properly and getting bit, thinking you know it all, and your Great Pyrenees Henry bites you, right? Yeah. And like on both ends, it's kind of like a correction in the sense of like get your shit in line, right? Because these aren't computer systems that you can program.
Right. Yeah, it's important to have systems in place, sort of like a schedule, but you have to adapt. I love that you're just like, these are living, breathing, emotional creatures, and to think that you just get to hang it up at 5 p.m. and clock out, that's not true.
Yeah, there's no such thing as clocking out, especially the way that we're doing it. I mean, if people do one-on-ones, which is cool, a lot of people are very successful with one-on-ones, then you can clock out. You could be like, my last one-on-one appointment is 4 o'clock. By 6 o'clock, I'm home and I'm done. My phone is shut off, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And like, God bless those people because they have a life. But when you do board and trains, you don't have a life. Like, as much as you can be like, all right, lights out is whatever, last like supper's 5 o'clock, and I don't know, lights out is 8 o'clock, right? Let's say, like, even so, you get that dog in that whines in its crate. It's there for you to teach it not to, right? You get that dog that like is a younger dog and has to go out again that night. Like all these things, because there's so many variables, right? There's no such thing as a break. And I think it applies to dog owners too. And it's an important thing for dog owners to recognize that, right? That you can't clock out from the responsibility of having a dog, whether that means the responsibility of training, the responsibility of living with it in a trained way, right? Structure, all that stuff, or simply getting it to its vet appointment, right? Or getting it fed. Like that, as much as it's all fun and games to have a dog, which it is, it's really fun, but it's also like a shit ton of responsibility that you can never clock out of. That is an important thing for people to recognize.
100%. But something that you mentioned too is like, okay, so we fulfill the dog, right? We have it out, we have it training, we do like socials, we have it on like that schedule. If you fulfill a dog, of course you can feed it at 5, last potty at 8, and have it sleep in the crate.
Right.
You know what I mean, like that's okay. A lot of people that I'm seeing, you know, my dog every night at 9 o'clock just barks at me for attention and wants to play, and it's just like, well, don't let it. You know, like dogs don't need that 100% time, but at the same, like you're right, you can't clock out. But if you're fulfilling them, then you shouldn't feel guilty about them being in the crate at 8 o'clock at night till the morning.
Yeah, 100%. I think that I've said this for years, that dogs should accommodate humans and not vice versa.
Yep.
But I still believe it's a two-way street, like any relationship, right? Like you can't expect your dog to accommodate you when you're not also, like you called it, fulfilling that dog's needs, when you're not doing what a dog truly needs in order to be able to accommodate you, right? Like in any relationship with another being, there has to be that give and take in it. I'm curious what you mean when you say a dog feeling fulfilled, so that it shouldn't bark at you, or so that you could put it away at 8 o'clock at night and have a little life.
Right. You know, that's obviously depends on like the breed, right? You know, if some breeds require a lot less exercise than, you know, but to me, a fulfilled dog is, you know, you wake up, you take them for a walk, you know, feed them breakfast, then at night take them for another walk or an adventure or something, you know, something that fulfills their need to run, to sniff, to, you know, do something, and provide it, you know, that advocacy and that leadership. That's all you need, right? If you do that and you're good about, you know, actually leading the dog, then you can go anywhere, you know, you can fulfill the dog anywhere. But, you know, if you let it roam free, and take the reins, then no matter how much exercise you do, you're not going to be able to fulfill it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like hearing the different ways that people explain it, because to dog owners, fulfilling their dog's need is such a broad, empty statement,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, go fulfill your dog's needs. It's like, well, he fit and ate already. What else should I do? Right? And we went for a bike ride. Like, what else? Right? And then there's that whole other side of it that's like the mental stuff that your dog has to deal with, and helping it learn how to cope with the world, and as you called it, leadership or advocacy, and all of that stuff that I think is equally, if not more important, many times for many dogs than the physical exercise. You know, because the physical exercise is a given. Like 99% of dog owners across the board know that they got to walk their dogs. There's always that one that's like, you got to actually let them know. But in general, people know their dogs need exercise, right? But most people don't understand why their dog's being exercised, but it's still acting like it's filled with energy. It's still all over the place. It still demands things, when it's like, well, I've done everything it needs. So it's the other side of fulfillment that I think that we as trainers need to talk about more, which is the mental fulfillment. I wouldn't call it mental stimulation, because I don't think that's what most dogs need. There are dogs that's important, and a certain level of that is always important, and that can be done through living life with them, right?
Right.
About it, life is mentally stimulating in general, right?
Yeah.
And living in a human home where there's a TV on and there's noise and there's stuff, that's stimulating as hell. It's like, teach them how to deal with that stimulation, and that's how they'll do better with it.
Yeah. Ignoring and doing nothing is doing something. You know what I mean? Like being able to turn it off and just like look around, you know, passively observe is whenever you go into someone's house and their dog is just chilling, like that's the best thing to see. You know, obviously when you want to interact with it and you want to play with it, it's there to do that. But if you're, you know, you're there to hang out with that person, you know, you don't want their dog all up in your grill.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing when you walk in and there's dogs just chilling. Like, I recently forgot like how cool it is to have a bunch of dogs hanging out calmly with each other because I started taking it for granted. And I put up a picture of like, I don't know how many, 7 or 8 dogs all in place while I was like eating supper and watching a movie or something. And a bunch of people messaged me of like one person, a client of mine even said like, this was why I hired you when I saw these pictures. Right. And I was like, this is what did it. Like,
yeah,
right?
Honestly, I get those messages too, where it's just like, wait a minute, how do you get them to stay there? You know, like, what do you do? And I'm like, you just teach them place and like, let them know the rules of place.
Yeah. And I started taking it for granted because it's like, it's just part of my life. Like I have dogs hanging out on place while I do a podcast. That's life. Where else would they be? Right. And it's to me just a beautiful part of life. But it was good that I was reminded of it because at one point that was not a part of my life. At one point it was like, if I'm talking to somebody, my dog is probably eating my sheets or something, right? Like he's probably not doing something good if I'm not watching him, my eyes on him the whole time. So it's an important thing to not forget, especially for us trainers like you and I who both got into this because of our messed up dogs, right? It's a good thing, at least I found for myself, to always remember, like to check in where I came from, right? Like I was that dog owner, and it helps me not be that judgmental dog trainer.
Yeah. And I think that that also means that you should go back, and even though you posted something, you know, a piece of content giving advice or whatever, you know, the goal of the content was, go back and post things on the same topic. That's what haven't really done. I've tried to everything new, something new. And I think I need to go back to the basics and like, you know, post, you know, about the green stuff, you know, the stuff that new followers and, you know, owners that need to go back to the basics.
We all need to.
Yeah.
Like that's the important stuff. The important stuff is not like fancy stuff, whatever. I can't think of a good stupid example, but like the fancy stuff is fun and it's fancy and it's great. And I have nothing against like agility and trick training and sport work. And I don't know anything about that stuff. And I think it's awesome. And I like to watch it. Right.
Yeah.
But it's the basics that's important. It's like when you lose sight of the important stuff, it's then the other stuff doesn't matter. Right. I've known dogs in the past that knew a lot of tricks that were complete assholes because they didn't have the basics to then build on and then be like, now you're a good dog. Let's teach you tricks.
Yeah.
Right? It's just straight to the tricks. That's where it's important. I mean, if you look at anybody who's been following me for a bit and like, we'll see that I literally repeat myself 1.5 million times. Right.
Yeah.
I try to do it in different words, at least, so that I'm not just copying and pasting. But it's not even about drilling a point home. It's more like, let me try to say it differently so that now somebody who needs to hear it will get it. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's think about yourself listening to Gary Vee's content, right? You listen to it forever. And then it was that one thing that he probably said because Gary Vee repeats himself over and over. There's nothing new he's ever said. I've been following him for years. And like in that content that inspired you when like Tea with Gary or whatever it was called, right?
Yeah.
What he said that inspired you was something you'd heard at least 100 times.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
I honestly, I had a lot more time on my hands. Like, you know, like as messed up as it is to say, like COVID allowed me to spend more time, you know, finding this passion and this love for dog training. So, but you're exactly right. Saying it a different way is a new message.
Yeah. And it's why I love go home sessions. They force me to think of new ways of saying something so it'll connect with that specific person that I'm talking to right now. Right.
Yeah.
Like some of my good written content has come like the morning after a go home session, and I'll sit down and write because I'm forced to think about it in a fresh way.
Yep. You're talking so much that they just like the analogies just fly out. And you're like, wait a minute, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Exactly. Sometimes I wish like I had that parts of my go home sessions videoed. I don't really video go home sessions much. I'll maybe like do a 30-second video here and there. But like it would be cool if I can have like someone hiding in a corner videoing when I'm talking, because that's when like the good stuff comes out.
Yeah.
And then like half the time I'll forget it later. So it's like that would be the good stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I did a go home session. The one night, it was like late at night, and my wife was in the kitchen like cooking dinner, and she heard this analogy, and she like turned around and was just like, Matt, that was good. It's like, why are you filming?
Yeah, that's the stuff you got to capture.
Yep.
You got to get your wife to play Julie's role and just video everything you do. I'm curious, what did you do before you got into this? What was your work?
I mean, I was in sales. So working in a sales job in an office. When I was getting into like dog training was a hobby. So I would get up, at like 5 a.m. and do some training for breakfast, with Dwight, and then go to work. And then while I was at work, I'd YouTube dog training videos, and I'd come home and I'd try what I just learned at work. So, but yeah, I was in sales. I needed to upgrade my wardrobe when I started doing this full time, because it's getting cold around here and I can't wear, a button-up shirt to the dog.
It's probably a relief.
Oh man, just being like, I just didn't belong in an office. Like just being outside. I love being outside. I love, I don't know. It's just great. It's been amazing so far. I'm
curious if there's anything that you took from being in a sales position and an office job that you applied to what you do now.
Oh, 100%. Definitely talking to clients. I like the initial phone conversation is a sales call. I'm hearing what they're dealing with. What are their issues? What is their budget? What is their time frame? Also, if they had a magic wand, like what's their end goal? What does life look like? And then come up with a way to tell them that, I can meet it, or I can't meet that goal. And let's maybe, meet in the middle somewhere, like manage those expectations.
Right.
That's what the phone calls are. It's a sales call.
Yeah. And it's an important thing. Like when you said you were in sales, I was like, that's a skill that every dog trainer needs to learn, because most dog trainers suck at that aspect of the business. At least the ones that I've spoken to about it, like privately, not on a podcast, but like it's a tough one, because people get into dog training because they love training dogs. And unless they have a background in sales or the business side of things, I should say, then it kind of leaves you hanging, because you're like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. I'm training dogs. I'm putting out content, but I don't have clients. Right?
Yeah. It's funny though, because I actually messaged you a while back when I just started to charge people, and I think I asked you about rates or something, and then you said, "Well, what do you want your rate to be?" And I told you, and then you're like, "Well, then that's your rate."
Yeah.
And for some reason, like with sales, like of course, I'm gonna charge what I charge, but I was maybe lacking in the confidence of my dog training skills to justify being able to charge what I wanted to charge. And then, you pretty much just shot that down. It was like, that's stupid. You should charge what you charge and what you want to charge. And then I just haven't looked back since then.
Yeah. It's a different thing when you're putting a value on yourself and your own work than when you're putting a value on whatever product you were selling for some corporate company. It's a totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
And it plays into so much of the dog training side of the dog trainer side of things, that is kind of the unspoken stuff of like lacking confidence as a dog trainer, right? Not seeing the value in what you do as a dog trainer, which I think is what a lot of dog trainers really struggle with, but don't talk about, at least not publicly. But if you get to know them, then they might actually talk about it. But I've seen it being spoken about so much. And I could talk for myself. When I worked at a facility before I started training on my own. So I had a lot of experience with dogs before I started my own business. I was training dogs for a while. I was working in the daycare. I had experience. I had my hands on probably thousands of dogs before I started my own business. At least 1,000 or two, right? Because a lot of them were just in rotation, the same dogs. But I got to know dogs really well. But I didn't see the value in what I did. So I had the same conversation that you and I had with another trainer, a well-known trainer. And I was like, do you think this price makes sense for a session?
Yeah.
And the trainer was like, well, do you think that makes sense for what you're worth? Right?
That's exactly what you did to me.
Yeah. And the reason why is because I'll never tell someone what to, I mean, if someone like reaches out to me and they never worked with a dog before and I think their work is shit, I'm going to be like, I think you should practice more before you train. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. But like, if somebody asks for advice of what they should charge, what I think the question really is how much do you think my self-value is? And that's something that someone has to answer for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't put that price. You as in like, you can't tell me how much my training's worth. Yeah.
Right.
And maybe it wasn't like, for me, maybe it wasn't like lacking the self-confidence. It was like, last week I did this for free and I loved it. You know what I mean? But now I'm going to charge people for it. And it's like, I don't know.
You feel weird, like making money doing something you love?
That's what it was at the time. Not now, but at the time when I was just starting, it was like, I would do this for free. Like, I love this. Feels weird to take money for it,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually the opposite. It's like, if you want to do something you love, you better take money for it, or you're not going to be able to continue doing something you love for too long.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. It's like, looking back on it, it was, it's like, well, duh. But in the moment, you're like, I can't take this,
Yeah. What's been your biggest struggle?
It was that actually feeds in greatly because I was going to ask you. So this used to be a hobby, right? This was, something that I did morning and night, and at my job, I was, at my job. Now it's become my life, and how, like, I'm guessing how balancing, you know what I mean? Like balancing my dog training with my life. Like, I don't have any other hobbies because this was the one. And it's like, now I don't know what to do. It's only dogs. And, that doesn't, I love it. And I want to continue it and learn and do everything about it. But I need to get away from it sometimes too. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like finding that balance, and I'm still searching for it. It has been the toughest part.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's a hard one because I could speak for myself, and if you agree, that's cool. But I put my all into what I do. I try to, right? Because I'm passionate about it, which leaves, number one, you're just physically and mentally tired, right? Mm-hmm. But it also leaves it where it's like, it's hard to know, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Is this enough? Right? I had this conversation with you were shadowing with Josh when I had.
That's nuts. Yeah. I do remember that. Yeah.
And that was really what I was calling for. I wasn't calling for training help. I was like, I need help, figuring out how to have balance in my life, right? Because I was like, I have just I feel like I just need to constantly be working the dogs, doing things with the dogs, and then what's left of my life besides dogs. Plus I have my own 3 dogs, right? And it becomes a lot. But I think that balance is something that takes time, at least for myself, takes time to find. I'm serious when I say I'm still working on it, right? I started trying to put aside time in the morning that's me time, right? So I started exercising. I hate it, but whatever, I do it. Right? So that's not something that I love, but it's something that I do, right?
Yeah, I mean, you need to. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I should be honest about it. I like it in the moment. I don't like going there, and I don't like afterwards, but I like it in the moment. But I've been looking into also trying to find other hobbies, because dog training is something that I'm so passionate about that it becomes everything you do. And then you're left with but what do I have to clear my mind besides reading or watching a podcast or something like that, right? Do you play music or anything like that?
No, never really had that musical ability, I guess. But something that I've done as well as like when I do find that time to escape, you take in information that isn't dog training related, and then it goes in your brain, and then you relate it to dog training.
Yes,
How some of like
you said that.
you know, the best content that I've put out is because I heard something, you know, from something else and then related it back to it. So, but no, really, I just, I like being active. So, you know, taking my two dogs out, and going on an adventure is an escape from dog training, not because I'm not actively training them, and I'm obviously using their training, but just having fun.
Right.
You know, them.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to just enjoy time.
Yeah. But no, I do remember that conversation, and one of the things that I did learn from Josh and from that conversation is like you give the dog you know, a controlled experience in that day, right? We tackled something, they learned something. Now like let them think about it. You know, put them away, work on passive training with them, but like letting them think about it, and then the next day you get them out and you made so much more progress than you thought in the moment.
Yeah.
I really noticed that.
Absolutely. And something that I used to worry about doing it, I should say, it just bothered me because I didn't think about it the right way, is if you're training a dog for a family, which is what we do, it's family pet dog training, right?
Mm-hmm.
That dog is going to be left alone in the average family for anywhere from 5 to 8 hours on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it doesn't know how to chill by itself in a crate quietly, you haven't done your job to help.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's always going to be those dogs that are just going to be the whiny dogs. I sent home a dog just this week that's still whining in its crate.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. I taught the owners how to manage it at home. I gave them some tips and tricks, and worst comes to worst, you'll use a bar collar, right? And that's what's going to be for that specific dog. But in general, if we're not teaching dogs how to be calm, how to lay down their crates, how to relax, how to be okay with being alone,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not really like you haven't done family pet dog training. You've taught a dog how to do a lot of things, but not how to just chill and be by itself, which is a big part of a dog's life with
Mm-hmm.
most family dogs, right? And the way that I thought about it when I first got into this was I got to always be training, right? And I was like, I have to always be actively doing something with these dogs. So it's like, you're on place for an hour. Now let's go for another walk. Now let's go for practice call. And it was like, that's nuts. It's the fact that it's like exhausting for the human. Like, you're making the dog into something that it's not supposed to be for a family dog, right? Then it's going to require all of that. And then you send it back home and they're like, he can't stay still. Well, like, I put it in place. Yeah, but like, he wants to walk again, right? He wants to run again, because we end up stimulating more than they would in a real natural environment that they would live in with their owners.
100%. Yeah, and you know, I'll probably take that away as some value that I got, just being able to explain that. You know, it's like, well, your dog now needs to be let alone for 8 hours while you work. You know, I guess I never thought of it like that, but I do like value the dog's downtime for sure.
Yeah. Well, there's so many values to that. Like there's the soaking experience, right? Of them just thinking it over at night. I'm trying to remember who I heard talk about this. I think it was Josh.
Yeah.
Talking about with the rat experiment.
Yeah.
You saw it? And that's so for people who don't know, because I'm just like rat experiment. I realize I'm talking.
Everyone does that.
Right. So what they basically, I haven't read the study, but I'm gonna get it because I'm interested in reading about it. I'm gonna find out where I could read it. But basically, they did a study on rats where, for behavioral science, to understand how mammals learn, a part of it. So they had them in this little container, like a box of some sort, I think, like a cage, right? And then they let them out into a maze, and they were studying their brain to see like how it lights up while I was doing the maze, and then they put them back into the box for like nap time, sleep time. And when the mice were sleeping, as they got into a certain level of sleep, the brain started to be activated in the same way as how it was lighting up when it was doing the maze, right? And when they took it out a second time and let them do the maze again, they were quicker and better at doing the maze, right? They were able to problem solve it faster, which I realized after is literally where the term sleep on it comes from, right? Like you sleep on an idea. Like because I was telling this to somebody else. And as I said it, I was like, that's why we do this, right? That's why we say that. So when someone says like they need to sleep on an idea, it probably is the same thing, right? If you go to sleep thinking about something, it's in your brain. The brain is actively digesting that idea, and you're going to be better at problem solving it in the morning, hopefully, right? And the learning thing that was very cool from that experiment was they got to see that there's something about downtime to soak on a newly learned problem solving skill or behavior that does wonders for the animal when it comes to learning, right? And I'm sure it applies to us too as humans. And
in college, they always tell you not to pull all-nighters,
right.
To study for an exam. I never listened, but there's definitely value in getting a good night's sleep and meditation and all these other practices that people need to be calm and not be constantly stimulated. And that's what we were doing, thinking that we needed to do is constantly stimulate. I tell my clients all the time, like, the more, like, obviously the active training, right? You need to teach the dog how to do something, but it's like the passive training, getting them to lay down for an extended period of time or be on place for an extended period of time. That's where the true value comes in for the dog and for us. I can fold laundry, put the dishes away, cook, eat, do all these things while the dog just lays calmly. And then when it's time to go have fun and go actively do stuff, they can do that.
Right. And I think that in general, and I'm separating this statement as separate from like serious behavioral cases, right? So I'm not talking like aggression, separation anxiety, like the serious stuff, but the basic stuff that most owners struggle with is one of two types of struggles. It's my dog like is crazy out of the house, right? So I can't take him anywhere, right? And he pulls on the leash and he's all over the place, / doesn't listen to me, right? Or in the house, he has all these behaviors that he does that makes life with him miserable, right? And life is supposed to be fun with your dog. And it can really be solved with two simple steps to it. Teach a dog how to move with you, teach them how to stay still and not follow you, right? Like if you teach those two skills alone to any dog, that's all you really need. And everything gets built into that, right?
Yeah.
Because now you have a dog that can chill. We like to call it place, but can chill. And because it doesn't have to be place, it could just be learning to stay still, right? While you go do the dishes so that he's not eating the kids' toys, right? And you can have a dog that you can take with you to the park because he knows how to be with you and walk with you and move with you. So it's really boils down to those two simple things. The problem is that there's a lot of emphasis on the active side of it usually, and not as much of a focus on like the passive side of it. And that's what a dog does most of its day. I don't know any dog owner that engages with their dog for 23 hours a day, right? Like they don't want to, even if the dog is trying to do that, it's like not fun anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a hard concept for some owners to grasp too, that's the most important thing. And it's easy for us, but we need to put that message out there as best we can.
Yeah. Well, it's foreign. It's a very foreign idea because if you Google like what to do for a dog that has behavioral issues, you're probably going to come across very quickly more mental stimulation.
Yeah.
Right. Very quickly. It's either going to be exercise your dog more or give it more mental stimulation. Right.
Yeah.
And what people are not talking about is that the dog is stimulated already. Right. Dogs act crazy because they're stimulated. So it's not something that's spoken about in any of like in a mainstream way. What's important for balance trainers to recognize, I'm realizing this more and more, is like we're the outcasts, right? In the mainstream world of dog ownership.
Yeah.
Right? We feel like we're not. We feel like there's a lot of us because we have community and we have our clients who love us and we have like all this cool, but it's really insular. It's an insular community, right? Of like-minded people, which is awesome. But outside of that bubble of balanced training is the real world. And in that real world, everything we're saying is foreign to the average dog owner, even to a lot of dog trainers, that the idea of like not mentally stimulating a dog and actually teaching it how to stop that, right? actually teaching a dog how to just be okay with doing nothing, be okay with being bored. These things sound crazy. I mean, probably if I told you that, I don't know your situation with Dwight, but I'm assuming if I told you this when he was 7 months old, not 8 months old, so it's right before the asshole stage.
Yeah.
And I just like, as a friend, like, yo, Matt, you should teach your dog how to do nothing. You'd be like, you're nuts.
Yeah. He knew all the tricks. He knew how to roll over, to play dead, to, the party pleasing things. But if he wanted to be pet, he was gonna get it.
Yeah.
And no, you're 100% right. Yeah.
You recently put up not so recently, a post asking based on questions that you asked your clients.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just texted a handful of clients, and the idea, I don't want it to just be a singular post. I want to eventually create, a video of myself. Hey, you just brought your dog home. Here's what you need to do. But no, I just asked my clients, what advice they would have for someone that just brought their dog home from a board and train. And the responses that I got blew my mind. Honestly, I was like, wow, you guys must have a really good teacher. But it was a lot of people just saying that routine is so important. There was people that saying, like, I never realized how much I was on my phone when I expected my dog to pay attention to me. Just like little things like that I put a post together, shared it. The responses were great. And I had fun doing it too.
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot because I love an owner's perspective. We were kind of chatting about this before we went live, that I had one of my clients on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And those of you guys who didn't listen to it, if you're dog owners, even dog trainers, it's actually one I recommend a lot. Not because it's my podcast. I don't recommend you listen to any of my podcasts, but that one was really cool because it got an owner's perspective that was not necessarily like the most typical perspective on what he'd learned through dog training, balance training in particular, life with his dog. And I think there's something really, as much as I like to think of myself as a dog owner that also trains dogs, at the end of the day, like, we are in different categories because we see things from a different perspective now. And the more clients we work with and the more dogs we work with, we start to think like a dog trainer and forget about the dog owner experience, right? And the way of thinking as just an average dog owner. And hearing when I saw that post, I was inspired by it because it brought me back to that idea of, like, think about how a dog owner thinks about things, not a dog trainer with your crazy way of thinking about things, right? Just a dog owner. And it's a great way of approaching it. And it's in a content way, I think it was very also original because it definitely, if me as a dog trainer related to it, hearing a dog owner's thing, dog owners were like, that's cool,
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that feedback. Even just over Thanksgiving, that was the first time I had a break from board and trains in a while. And my wife and I and 2 dogs got a getaway cabin, and we went away, and it was just the 4 of us. And it just I don't know. It was just, my dog training hat was off for 5 days straight. And, it was just an awesome experience. And sometimes I take them for granted, right? I'm using, my dogs to help train, to help rehab these other dogs. But I do need to take a back seat and just be like, my dogs are awesome. Like, I've got the best dogs out there, and be goofy with them and cuddle with them and like do the things that we tell people not to do. In moderation is okay, but it's being a dog owner is awesome.
Hell yeah. I needed that. I did that in September. I took a whole month off. Well, it ended up being 3 weeks because I still took some dogs in, but I couldn't resist. I was encouraged by a bunch of dog trainer friends to like take time off, which was a great thing that I listened to them. And I went on a little road trip with the 2 boys. Mama doesn't come with us on those, but I went with my 2 male dogs, with the boys, and we just went on a road trip. We went to my friend's farm. We went to visit another friend. We went to some hiking trails in Pennsylvania, just did random cool shit that I get to do with my dogs that I forget I get to that I could do with them because of the life we live, and it becomes very like we just do things by how do you say, by rote, whatever, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
And I sometimes find that I forget to appreciate like how awesome my own dogs are, right? They're just kind of here, right? They're always just like here, like he's just laying around, he's just being annoying, like whatever. They're just being themselves, and I forget like separate from the dog trainer mode and just be a dog owner.
Yeah.
And I think that like it's good to clarify. You kind of said that encouraging people not to do these things. See, I want dog owners to be goofy with their dogs. I want them to be free with their dogs. I want them to be their silly selves.
Absolutely.
And what I found in my own experience is that the more I worked on the boundaries and all the not fun stuff of the training life with my own personal dogs, the more I got to experience the crazy, silly goofiness that I love about them.
Yeah.
Without all the assholery.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You give them, when the structure isn't in place and the boundaries aren't in place, and you give them an inch, then they take a mile, right?
Yeah.
But if you get to goof around and play rough and do all these things, and then as soon as you want it to stop, it stops. As soon as you need to recall them because you're getting too close to the road, like then they come back. But more structure equals more freedom. I put that up. Everyone says that, but I put up a post like that, and I was just like, this is good. It makes sense to people.
Yeah, it's a weird concept, right? Because structure essentially includes telling a dog no. It includes stopping a dog from doing things it wants to do, or boundaries was a better term for it, really. But it's all connected, right? And in like the simple terms of thinking about it, it's like, well, if you're stopping a dog from doing what it wants to do, then you're stopping it from being its goofy, silly self, right?
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
But what I find is like, because I could stop them from doing what they want to do, I could also allow them to do more of it at the same time.
Yes.
Right. Where it's actually enjoyable for me. Like I like when my dog, at least Hendrix, like I like when he acts crazy. Right. I like when the two boys, when they play fight really hard with each other and they growl, it looks like they're killing each other. I love it. Right. I love when Mama Bear like does her craziness, whatever that is, which is not much, but like it's only fun though, because I know when I'm like, all right, get back in the car, like everybody shuts up, game is over. Right. Or when like we're out on the hiking trail. It's not a hiking trail. I just like to call it that because it feels like I'm not in New York City. But when we're out on the trail in the park and chickens pop up, right, I can call my dog off of that. And like
that was, I still laugh about like
you were the first one that knew about it. You were talking, and I was so excited.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was still laughing at your initial reaction, like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I think about that. It's so funny.
It was the most random thing.
Yeah.
I'm walking down, like, I've been to this park for years. There are no chickens there. That's not I don't live in farm country. Like, I live 45 minutes out of Manhattan, right? And the most I've seen there is, like, I've seen rabbits a couple years ago, which is probably they're all eaten, right? Fucking chickens on a trail in New York City. Like, at the same time, it's the most typical New York City thing. Like,
I live, in Pittsburgh, in city limits, and there's a couple of locations where people have chickens, for the eggs or whatnot. And I always walk the dogs past them just to, see their reaction. Do I need to correct here? Setting up that situation. And the one day, right next to a busy road, the chickens are just out of the coop on the sidewalk. And I'm like, kind of a similar situation, but I had, a training dog with me, wasn't sure how he was going to react. And it's just like, this probably isn't the best scenario. So we'll turn around the other way. But no, it's just that video cracked me up.
Yeah. Anyone who hasn't seen that video should go watch it because it's funny. I laughed at my own reaction when I rewatched it. I was like, that's actually really funny. But there's some.
I was sorry. Those moments where you're recording and it's just the perfect time to be recording. You have those moments, but it's just you don't capture them all.
Yeah, and that's the good stuff.
Mhm.
But there's some people in my neighborhood who, like you said, they raise chickens for eggs, and I'm assuming that's where those are from because they were looked like they were taken care of. They didn't look like they were struggling too much. They were all fat and like
Yeah.
colorful. But
Hendrix would have made him struggle.
yeah, they disappeared as soon as they saw Hendrix. They were gone, right?
Yeah.
Because we walked along that trail afterwards, and they were out. I don't know if they had a heart attack. I don't know what happened, but they were gone.
Yeah.
That was good stuff.
Mhm.
And that's like, to me, the reason why I wanted to post it, it was on my stories originally, but the reason why I really wanted to post it, besides it, it's like a cool thing to show off, not going to lie, right?
Yeah.
And the whole situation was funny. But it's also like, this is why training is so awesome, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's a good thing for us trainers to post, not just stop your dog from doing all these behaviors, but what's the other side of balanced training, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't get spoken about as much as it should. It should be featured a lot. I try to show with my own dogs of them playing. I even try to show with like clients' dogs, the ones who could when they're like playing and having fun or going somewhere. It's like that's the ultimate. I made a video about this when I was on a road trip with my dogs and we were hiking in the middle of Jersey somewhere. It was a trail near my friend's house.
Mhm.
And I was saying like this is the point of balanced training.
Yep.
If my dogs never understood the word no, if they never understood they had to respect me, if we didn't have boundaries, like they'd be home in their crates while I was hiking by myself,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And that's, I think, the best, a very good side. I wouldn't say the best, but Marley, what are you doing? He was sound asleep and he flipped over and got all confused. But that's the side of balanced dog training, and I guess really dog training in general. If you're able to get those results, that should be talked about a lot, so that we can show people like why all of the bad stuff, the not
Mhm.
fun stuff, is so important. What do you get out of it in real life? Because if you don't get anything out of it, it's worthless.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that you talk to people and ask them what their goals are for their dog. They're thinking so small because they can't take their dog for a walk or they can't watch TV at night, right? Because their dog is so demanding. Then when you show them what's possible in one session, being like, this is how you can stop this right away. And then if you implement all these other things, like then their world opens up and like, it's like in an ideal world, what do you want to do with your dog? When you brought your dog home, right? What did that picture look like in your head? I feel like that's what's so gratifying about it, is because you can take someone who can't take their dog for a walk during normal hours because at the sight of another dog, they're going to go nuts and it's embarrassing and they just don't deal with it. So they let the dog force them to adjust, show them what is capable through a board and train or even a session. And then you tell them how to do it. And if they adopt it, then you get the updates that are amazing. You know what I mean? That's what I'm like, that's what I love, is just getting those updates from clients that are truly grasping the training and then using it out in the real world, because that's the goal. They want to create the best bond that they can create, and that comes from experiences.
Yeah. And I like to ask people when we have our phone consult, whatever you want to call it, before they actually sign up, like it's a very similar way to the way you presented it, right? Like your magic wand. I say, if I can snap my fingers and all of your struggles faded away, what would life look like, right?
Yep.
And many times it's hard for, like you said, it's very hard for people to envision it. It's like, this is the life they're living now.
Yeah.
And what I found helps many times is to take it back even further and be like, when you, like, again, you said this just now, but it's such a powerful thing for anyone, like for listening to this now, right? And you struggle with your dog. Think about what you thought life would look like with your dog the day you brought him home, right? Because everybody thinks about that at some point when we get dogs, right? Because we get dogs with this vision of what we want to do with them. And it's not always going to be possible with every single dog, but believe it or not, like most of it, you could succeed with the average dog. There's always those dogs that are just those dogs, and that's what you got, and you're going to work with it accordingly. But if you think back, right, even you with Dwight, right?
Yeah.
When you got Dwight, I'm sure you had this life that you envisioned with him, right? Because you got your dog and you love him and it's awesome, and like you had things you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's that vision, I think, that makes it easier for people to work through the hard stuff, because dog training isn't fun all the time. It's not always easy. It's not fun to punish your dog, right? It's not fun to have to be like, well, you're not welcome on my couch anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not fun. But if you remember the vision that you have of what you really ideally want your life to look like with your dog, it's much easier to take those steps to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you said that, because it's the vision. The vision can be applied to anything. So advice for new trainers as well, anyone that's looking to build something. I literally, probably for 2 months straight, I practiced envisioning what my company would look like for 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day, you envision something, and your brain will start to change and make it happen. You're in your subconscious. So start envisioning what you want, whether that's a well-behaved dog or anything that you want to accomplish. Envision it for at least 15 minutes a day, and it'll start to happen. It'll start to manifest.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I will say on that is nothing's going to manifest if you don't put in the work.
That's true. That's true. It takes action, but listen.
Because there are, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone knows that person who has their vision board, right? And that vision board just sits there and gets updated every year, but nothing happens, right? Like, it should go without saying, but it pisses me off almost, because I see like a lot of these. What's a good way to say it? A lot of these like new age, like go get it type people.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, they're big influencers on Instagram, and it's like, just manifest it, just vision it, right?
Right. No, I know that there's definitely a difference. But it was when I was already taking action, but just stopping. Right, just stop. Think about where you're taking all this action, but where is it going? Taking 15 minutes to envision where it's going, and then continuing to take that action. Right? If you stop taking action, then you're done.
Right.
But no, it's a very good point, because that's just like consuming the content and then wondering why you're not a dog trainer, or wondering why you're not doing what you want to do.
Right. And when it let's say, like, bring it back to dog training, because these ideas are, like many ideas when it comes to dog training, are really just life ideas, right? But I think what I find with the owners who can actually create a solid vision, it's because when it gets hard, right? Just like in your business, you've been in business for, I don't know, 8 months now? Yeah,
somewhere around there.
Right? Guaranteed in those 8 months, you've already had struggles, right? Otherwise, you're not really in business, because there's no such thing as a business that doesn't struggle, right? And it's just part of life, right? Anything that you do is going to be tough. There's going to be struggles. But because you have a solid vision, it's easier to work through those struggles. It's easier to figure out the steps to do it. There's something to focus on at the end, right? If you're running a race and there's no finish line, it's going to suck, right? Right? But
actually, I was in that example. I'm like, wow, that would be terrible.
Yeah, it would suck. And like, Forrest Gump, you just keep running.
Yeah.
But if you have something to focus on, you know where you're going. And then obviously once you get there, you set the goalpost a little further, but you have somewhere to go. It makes the struggles of getting there so much easier. Easier to work through, as well as easier to figure out how to work through it.
Yeah, and I've seen something that you've been doing recently, or maybe maybe it hasn't been recent, but I've just been noticing, is your gratitude posts. That's something that I need to incorporate more, and other people as well. But like, taking a step to enjoy the process and be grateful for something, like. That's something that makes the struggles worth it as well.
Yeah, gratitude is huge. I've shared this story, but never on the podcast, so I might as well. It's interesting, and I don't know. We'll see how long you've actually been following me, if you know this one. Anybody who's watching this, because I posted. So when I first started posting content, I was inspired by a couple of other people to share more about myself, more than just dog stuff. So I was like sharing stories about myself, how I grew up, things like that, how I got into all this random stuff about myself, right? But when I used to work at the facility that I worked at, for a little while, I wasn't happy, right? It was tough. I felt like I was working a job that wasn't mine, because even though like I had this goal of training dogs, having my own business, but I felt like I was doing it all for somebody else, right? Oh, he got that face. Your face changed in that moment.
Hold on 1 second.
Go take care of them.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So guys, that's how you know he's really training dogs. You see? It actually happened. And I've had dogs pop off a place so many times during this. But this is good. Tonight they're good. It's just my dogs and one other dog here. So I was working this job and I wasn't as happy as I should be, right? Because I was doing something I love. I was working with dogs and it was like I was very passionate about it, but it was tough because I had to do things other people's way. I was working for somebody. I'm not the type of person that likes to work for people. I like to do things my way. Otherwise it's wrong. Right? And it just was hard. Yeah. But I wanted to make it. I knew I wasn't leaving immediately. I had to like continue working there and like get myself to a place where I was ready to actually start my own thing. And I also wanted to be happy doing it. And I started to listen to, I was actually found out about this guy, Zig Ziglar. Do you know Zig Ziglar?
I do. Okay.
So I found out about him through Sean O'Shea from The Good Dog. Because Sean O'Shea would like, in his Instagram stories, he'll randomly talk about like whatever speaker he's listening to or podcast he's listening to. And also in his book, he has a list of recommendations of, I guess, personal development, self-growth type speakers and authors, people who were inspired him along his journey, right? So I was like, all right, let me check out who this guy Zig Ziglar is. So I started listening to his speeches and I started waking up down. I started waking up early and like extra early and going for a walk with Marley and listening to a Zig Ziglar speech, right? And I would listen to I would start my whole morning that way. So I would go I was the one who opened at the facility. So we'd open at 6 o'clock. I had the keys. I would go in, open with another staff member and start getting the place ready for the day, get all the dogs out. It was a whole morning routine before customers can actually come, right? So if 8 o'clock customers come, then you need at least 2 hours before to deal with all the boarding dogs that are there overnight. It was a lot of dogs. It was a big place. So 6 o'clock would start my day. So I would listen to Zig Ziglar for like an hour or two before going in every day and then have him in my headphones while I was just getting dogs in and out, pottying, feeding, breakfast, all that stuff. And what I was doing was pumping like positivity into my head to start my day. And a big part that Zig would talk about was the way you start your day is the way your day is going to continue going, right? Kind of like if you eat donuts for breakfast, chances are you're not eating a salad for lunch.
Is he the one that said you win the morning, you win the day?
I don't know if that quote is specifically his or not, but he definitely speaks about the idea.
Yeah, I've heard that quote. I don't know who it came from, but I love that.
Yeah. And basically, I'm drawing out the story too long, but basically, long story short is he would talk a lot about gratitude, right? And the importance of it and self-talk and all those things. So I decided I'm going to play an experiment, right? To see like if this shit actually works. I'm going to make a practical experiment to try it out. And I was like, wasn't so sure it's going to work. I was like a little critical, right? And that's like my style. I was like, let's see if this really works or if it's all just a load of crap to like make you listen to the speeches, right? So I decided that I was going to start my day because and he also says the first person you interact with is an important part of your morning, right? First interaction of the day and like the way you start your day, right? He speaks about it a lot. So every morning I would pick up this staff member she lived along the way from my house to the facility. So instead of her taking the train, I would pick her.
I heard this story on your Instagram one time, but I don't remember when it was. But no, keep going.
Okay, cool. So I would pick her up in the morning. So one morning, and it was always like I would just have my coffee. Sometimes I'd bring a coffee for her, right? And we would just like drive to work like in silence, like with music playing and like grumpy, half asleep people, right?
Yeah.
And it was that's how our morning was. It was like we'd be very quiet. Finally, at 8 o'clock, we'd like say good morning to each other and start the day, right? Because it was like we both had a routine. We just do it and like get shit done, and we were half asleep.
Mm-hmm.
I decided like when she got in the car one morning, I was like, "Listen, Savannah, like let's just humor me, right? We ready to have like had a working relationship. She knew I was like weird, whatever. So I was like, just humor me for a little bit, right? I want to try this experiment where every morning we're going to get in the car. When you get in the car, we'll tell each other good morning. And instead of just saying good morning and shutting up, good morning, today is a great day, right? Not it's going to be, today is a great day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll each say 3 things that we're grateful for in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is tough when you first wake up and you want to be sleeping.
Absolutely.
But it started to force me to think about like how much there is to be grateful for in my life while I'm doing things necessary that weren't like making me the happiest I thought, but
Mm-hmm.
like I fucking had a job.
Yeah.
That's gratitude, right? Like there are people all across the world who would like pay to have my job because they don't have anything to do with their day and they have no money, right?
Yep.
And I'm driving a car to get to my job, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
drinking coffee, and my car, the heat works, and like on and on and on. If you think about it, if anyone takes a second in this moment and thinks about like everything, you're listening to a podcast in 2020, right? Like on a piece of equipment that you own, right? Like
Yep.
it's crazy, it's endless. And then we started to do this every day, and my day started to get way better.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited. I didn't ask her. We did this every single day with each other, right? And my day started to get way better. Like I felt a massive change in my whole day. Everything was different. I would greet the other customers differently. I would greet the rest of the staff differently. I would interact with the dogs differently. I just felt better. And then and then one day she came over to me. It was like midday, and she's like, since we started doing that thing, like my day's been way better. Like everything's completely changed, right? And it was very cool to me. Anyone who wants to see like the other half of the story can go check it out on my Instagram, because I feel like I'm just talking too long now. But just the point of like gratitude being an active part of life changed my life tremendously, right? So like I don't necessarily write a gratitude journal every day like I used to, but I try to do it. And I think it's important. The reason why I put it publicly is, first of all, I want to inspire other people to realize like how awesome your life is. Like as shitty as it might be right now, your life is fucking awesome, right? Or like as shitty as your dog's behavior might be, guarantee you your dog is fucking awesome, right? Otherwise you would have thrown it out the house like many people do, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, if you tap into that for a little bit, your life's going to be way better. End rant. But that's all I have to say about that.
No, I think it's no matter how many times you hear a story like that, it's an amazing reminder of just like where mindset plays. If you are stuck around negativity, if you're stuck around a toxic environment, it's like then that's where your thoughts are coming from. Your thoughts are coming from the people that are, I think it was like, I don't know who said this, the five people you
everybody claims that.
Yeah. Well, the shit's true. It's true. So, to the fact that we're having this conversation right now, it's like, maybe we'll be one of those 5 people for one another and continue to grow and succeed because of it.
Yeah, thoughts are powerful. Thoughts are powerful. Words are powerful. Interactions are powerful. It changes everything.
Dwight just wandered off place. Oh, you're back on it. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, my dogs get on and off, but they're good, so I don't really care so much. What's been your favorite part of all of this? Not this talk, of your dog training journey.
I mean, I've loved dogs my entire life. Like growing up with dogs, they weren't the best behaved dogs. Probably had some issues that I could totally have addressed now. But no, I was growing up had dogs. If I was at a social gathering and I see a dog bowl, like I'm finding the dog. My roommate in college had a dog, so I played I did as much as I possibly could for that one. The fact that I get to work with these amazing creatures, that's the best part for sure. And then obviously the updates from from my clients, that keeps you going too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you?
In terms of excuse me, in terms of my favorite part of dog training, of being a dog trainer, I think if I had to boil it down to one thing, is not the dogs, and it's the impact I get to see that I make on people's lives. I got into working with dogs like so many people because I love dogs more than people and all that bullshit, and it's a load of shit. If you love dogs more than people, it's just because you haven't found good people yet, or you haven't realized the impact you can have on people yet. But people are fucking awesome. There's a lot of shitty ones, but people are awesome, and the world is awesome, really. And when you find a way, or I should say, when I found a way that I can have an impact on the world, it's the best feeling in the world, right? And an impact on, when I say impact on the world, it's like, I don't think I'm changing the world by talking right now. What I mean is I can change a person's life, right? And a dog plays such a valuable role in a family's life. Most people who I work with, most of my clients are families. It plays such a valuable role that when the dog is messed up, the family's messed up.
Yeah.
And when you can change that and bring peace into a home, to me, that's my favorite thing. I still do love working with dogs, right? Obviously. And I love the aspect of working with behavior, and I love all of that stuff. But if I had to boil it down to one thing, it's the impact that I see I get to make on families. Awesome.
I love when you're doing I still do some one-on-one sessions. I'm gonna phase those out because I'm just extremely busy and it takes you away from the house. And but when you're doing a one-on-one session, and if it's a couple that you're working with, they start to nitpick each other and go at each other, and it's no, we're all on the same team here,
Yeah.
And the amount of times you have to tell them, relax, breathe, all this stuff. Tell them that you all the positivity, all the stuff that we're talking about. It affects how you're working with your dog, and it affects, if you're mad, you're not going to convey the message you want to. And but yeah, just yesterday I got an update from a client's mom. So the mom messaged me and was just you changed their life. When it's coming from a mom, you made a difference.
Yeah. And it feels amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a ton of this as in our jobs, right? Dog training, that is so much human oriented more than dog oriented. You know what I've realized? Just side note, the only people who call people humans are dog trainers. Otherwise, they're just people, right? It's we're human and dog. It's no, they're people.
Change it to dog owner. I don't know.
But the only the part of this that I really love a lot and is that human aspect, of that person aspect, the people aspect, right? I've learned how to communicate better with people. I've learned how to read people better, how to send a message better, how to get something to be understood in a better way. To me, that's such valuable stuff that I wouldn't get it. I mean, just from a random whatever job that I could have had, even just from working with dogs, I wouldn't get it if I didn't work with dogs and the owners.
Right. Absolutely. 100% agree with that.
So you've only been professionally training for 8 months, but you've learned a shit ton in this time, probably, right? And learned had a lot of client interactions and dog interactions, and learned a lot from your own experience. what would you say is something that you wish every dog owner would know? Or we can word it differently for you, that you wish you knew when you had 8-month-old Dwight being an asshole.
Yeah. I just want to go back a little bit. The previous times you've asked this question, you've got some amazing answers, and I want to give my own answer, right? But Josh's answer, respect it all. Like that was an amazing answer. But I would say just to tell them that the information is out there, right? If you're struggling with anything, and whether the information's out there, so whether you acting on it, finding that information and implementing that, it's going to help, or hiring a trainer, like you can go both routes. I obviously went the route of learning as much as I possibly could, trial and error, and implementation. But if you're struggling, just like look for the information. It's out there. There's a lot of bad information, but there's a lot of good information too.
Yeah, there's hope.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that's important. A lot of people feel hopeless, like that they don't know what they could do or if they could do anything. Mm-hmm. And really there's so much help out there. It's like we live in the age of information, and there's literally so many routes you can take to getting the help you need with your dog if it's necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's when you hear clients say like, "Oh, I only walk my dog at 10 at night." I'm just like, "Oh, that's such a painful thing. That's such a painful thing." But the information's out there. The hope is out there.
Awesome, man. Cool. I appreciate you coming on. Let's wrap it up. Tell everyone where they can find you, follow you, see all your awesome content, see your work, all that stuff.
Sure. Well, I appreciate it. Just on Instagram, Cochran Canine Training. I've got it. Oh, how do I do that? Right there.
Yeah, right there.
I also have a Facebook account as well. YouTube's not doing enough there, but Instagram is where I post most of my stuff. Cool.
Everybody go follow Matt. He's awesome. All right, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. This was a good talk. I enjoyed it.
Hopefully first of many.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully you'll come back on in a year or two when you're super successful, and we'll recap and see how it is since then. That would be cool.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you everyone who's listening on podcast platforms, or who tuned into the live. Love you all. Have yourselves a good night and stay grateful.